Senator Roberts.
Thank you, Minister. You look like you need a break, so I'll give you a break from your legal jousting and setting up definitions of terms for the future. In proposing this bill, the government says the bill aims to secure jobs. My amendment on sheet 1768 goes to the heart of ensuring job security and protecting workers' rights. To ensure job security, my amendment on sheet 1768 ensures that unjustified vaccine discrimination is stamped out in employment. The original bill inserts breastfeeding, intersex status and gender identity as attributes that the Fair Work Act protects from discrimination. This amendment copies that approach and simply adds COVID-19 vaccination as an attribute protected from discrimination. The protection is still subject to the limits imposed on the other discrimination grounds in the Fair Work Act. An employer will not be in breach of the anti-discrimination grounds where the employer can prove, as they should have to, that it is a genuine and reasonable requirement of the position. This amendment is reasonable. In its approach, it is not radical because it uses and simply extends the existing mechanisms in the Fair Work Act. We've long known that COVID vaccines do not stop transmission. Before this became apparent, however, getting vaccinated to, quote, protect others was the justification many businesses used to roll out vaccine mandates. As a condition of keeping their job, many employees were coerced and still being coerced into receiving COVID injections and boosters they do not want. These vaccine mandates cannot be justified given the fact the vaccines do not guarantee protection from transmission. The New South Wales Personal Injury Commission agrees with this view, with workers' compensation being awarded for psychological distress stemming from mandates in the determination of Dorking and the Secretary of the Department of Education handed down on the 3rd of November. Sometimes the wheels of justice turn slowly, yet we are happy that judicial bodies are taking up this self-evident position that broad vaccination mandates cannot be justified. Despite this, mandates are still in effect across much of the private sector. It's clear that further legislative action must be taken. Businesses are simply ignoring the evidence against unjustified vaccine mandates. A clear message needs to be sent that unreasonable directions that infringe on workers' rights have no place in Australian workplaces. Often, mandates do not even account for Australians that have accepted medical contraindications to vaccination. The Australian newspaper reports that Qantas sacked a pilot for failing to comply with a vaccination mandate while he was off work in a serious health condition, being treated for bowel cancer. Separately, I've met a Qantas employee who, after being injected with the first COVID injection, was rushed to hospital with severe disability, possibly life-threatening due to the COVID injection. After hospital care and partial recovery, he returned to work, where Qantas insisted he get the second injection. He contested it and is on a vastly reduced pay on workers' compensation. He fears his career with Qantas is finished. How can this be in this country? This amendment seeks to reinforce workers' rights to refuse a workplace direction where it is not a reasonable and justified requirement of the job. It leaves no doubt for employees and employers that vaccine mandates must not be in place unless there is a reasonable and justifiable need for them. Minister, given that businesses continue to ignore workers' rights in this area, will the government support this amendment to reinforce the decisions of the Fair Work Commission and codify protections for workers against unreasonable workplace directions?
Senator Roberts, before